getting into banking, 311 co-sponsors. It's passed the House committee. It looks like it's going to pass the House. The Senate may block it, but that's putting off the inevitable. People have finally gone past the left and right, the two parties, to the real power structure, the bankers that you've been fighting for 40 years.
Right. You're talking about the proposed bill to audit the Fed.
Yes.
I presume. Yeah. I'd like to comment on that. I support that, of course, but I have some misgivings, which I'll mention for a moment, and then come back to my support statement. When I wrote the book, it was published in 1994, I had a little paragraph or two about the Audit the Fed bill, which in those days was routinely sponsored by Congressman Gonzalez. And I commented then, I said, we don't need to audit the Fed. What we need to do is abolish the Fed. And I complained then, I predicted then, that if we ever had a serious move to audit the Fed, that it probably would be an instrument by which politicians would make a big grandstand. They would say, we're going to do something about this Federal Reserve. We're going to audit the Fed. When in fact, if they did an audit, I think they'll find that for the most part, the Fed's not doing anything illegal.
It's a holding company.
It's a holding company. It's a cartel. It's doing what it's supposed to do. And it would drag on for a couple of years while people had the false impression that something was being
Your
done.
attack is on the institution and the system itself.
The system itself. And so I said, do we need to audit the mafia? No. We need to get rid of the mafia if we could. And I feel the same thing is true with the Federal Reserve.
But it has been audits that brought down Al Capone, and that's Ron Paul's view, is it will put it out there. His fight against them is identifying them as the enemy. Some polls show 81% of Americans want to abolish it.
Yeah. Well, now I come back to my opening.
Well, stay there. We got a break. Come back with your positive point.
Yes.
And then let's get more into man-bear-pig.
Yeah.
Do you know about the man-bear-pig?
No, tell me.
I'll tell you about Al Gore and the man-bear-pig when we get back. G. Edward Griffin is our guest in studio. This is the one, the only GCN Radio Network. I'm Alex Jones. Infowars.com, baby! No, G. Edward, the man-bear-pig is a South Park episode where they make fun of Al Gore for fear-mongering. And he says there's a mythical creature in the woods that's going to kill the town if they don't give him a bunch of money. And it's a half man, half bear, half pig, which of course is 150%. And it's just totally ridiculous. Later we'll play a clip of that if we can find it on YouTube or elsewhere. But getting into the positive part about auditing the Fed.
Yeah, I think it's a very positive thing because for the first time, people are hearing about the Federal Reserve, and they're hearing about it in a way that causes them to think that maybe something's wrong. Most people have never given a thought to this institution, and then when they do think about it, they think it's a great government agency of some kind. So now they're hearing audit the Fed. What does that mean? Why does someone want to audit the Fed? So the reason I support it is because it's causing millions of Americans to realize that there is something fishy with the Federal Reserve System, and that's a big step forward.
I want to get back into the Federal Reserve, but obviously the big issue is the public announcement of world government, the public announcement that it is to be funded by taxes on everything, a UN directorate over energy, taxation, 2% tax off the top of all countries' GDP, a police grid over all air traffic, taxes on that, taxes on food, taxes on fuel. Why do you think they're throwing everything at us at once, A, and B, are they accelerating their program because they're behind?
Well, two questions. I think that the reason they're throwing everything at us at once now is because we're coming very close to the finish line. I mean, there isn't much more to do, and they're just trying to tie it all up as quickly as possible, certainly within the next 10 years, I would say. So it's come time to button everything down, and you can't kid about it anymore when you're, trying to tie everything down. You have to call it exactly what it is. I don't know if they're accelerating their program or whether it's just like a natural phenomenon. When a candle burns brightly, it means it's about ready to burn out, So I think it's accelerated, but whether they've planned it to be that way or not, I wouldn't have any way of knowing.
But why would they go from admitting that they're doing, denying what they were doing to admitting what they're doing? I mean, doesn't that hurt them to say there's no world government, there's no carbon tax plan just 2-3 years ago to, there's a world government, it's going to save Africans by cutting off their power?
Well, I think the answer to that, Alex, is that if they had said, yes, we're building world government, if they'd said that 3, 4, 5 years ago, people would have been shocked. They would have been outraged. They would have said, who wants world government? But now there is enough crisis going on in the world. People are frightened of so many things that now they can see, yeah, there's world government, and it's the solution to all of your problems, everybody. So see how fortunate you are that we've got this masterful plan to save you. So I think now they're talking about world government because finally they can present it as a so-called solution to all of the problems that are infecting the planet.
And in the Copenhagen Climate Summit in disarray after Danish text leak of the official treaty that they want to get people to sign. They didn't mean to bring this out until the last few days. Get the third world all thinking they were going to get to loot the West because they're playing groups off against each other. And now they find out, oh, the IMF and World Bank will have all the power, not the UN. And this tax money will be doled out to you if you reduce your population and set up a global one-child policy. So everything is coming out in the open. People would laugh at Endgame 3 years ago. They're not laughing now. And so the IMF, World Bank, these are arms of the same private central banking system that we live under.
That's right. That has always been the source of the ultimate power. Certainly here in the United States, people are beginning finally to understand that the power is with the banks, not with the government. That the government supposedly was to control the banks, but we can see in the recent events in Washington when all of this money is created out of nothing and it goes to the banks and the congressmen dutifully vote for it without even understanding what the bills are. They never ask any questions. They never even read the bills. They just dutifully vote for it. I think anybody can see now that it's the banks that are running the show and not the government. So there will be no difference at the international level. It is coming out in the open that the IMF and the World Bank will be the center of authority and power.
But the banks want to create a new global government structure because there's no Bill of Rights, there's no Constitution, there's no Declaration of Independence. It's just pure, even the Guardian admits, secret world government run by private corporate interests. It actually says that in the text, and now the London Guardian is talking like, gee, Edward-Griffin, this is incredible.
Yes, it is. Well, the fact of the matter is they do have documents that appear like they're the Bill of Rights. I mean, they do have the Covenant on Human Rights that's published there at the United Nations. They have conferences on
the United Nations Unanimous Declaration on Human Rights, yes. 30 points, but in 29 and 30, all the rights given are privileges the UN can revoke.
Yes, and you don't have to wait till you get to the 29th and the 30th one. Every one of them along the way says, for example, everyone has the right to freedom of speech, except as may be provided for by law. Everyone has the right to employment or the right to travel. Everyone has the right to freedom of religion. Everyone has, all these rights. But in every condition and every provision, they say except as may be provided for by law, which means you've got these rights until they pass a law and take them away from you, which means you never had them in the first place.
Well said. On the subject of the private Federal Reserve, the holding company, the private banks that own and control it, they have stolen trillions of dollars. They won't say where it's gone. How do you see this unfolding?
That's a tough question. I'm taking a moment to think about it because I don't think the mechanisms are in place right now for the will of the people to have much effect. The government of the United States is firmly in the hands of collectivists who are beholden to this financial global power. And they care what the American voters think, but not as much as you might suspect that they do. They don't care so much about people who write them letters as they do about people who write them checks. And so I think when the public becomes upset by this and starts to demand change, as they're now doing, the politicians are maneuvering and thinking not in terms of how we're going to bring about the change, but how we continue doing exactly what we have been doing and to shut the public out of the debate and to just proceed in spite of the public opposition and concern. So to answer your question, I see an increasing pressure for genuine rebellion in this country, which scares the dickens out of me because I don't think that would be a good thing.
And we've seen the elite preparing for that.
Preparing for it, and I think hoping for it, because they know that if there is widespread civil violence, that'll be the excuse they really want in order to clamp down with martial law.
That's why they've got Northcom in place.
Exactly, yeah. So I worry a lot about that. But you asked me the question, where do I think it's going? I think that's probably where it's going to go, and I hope we can reach enough people soon enough to prevent that from happening.
Obviously, educating people is a big part of the solution, and we're doing that. But at the same time, as you've said, running for city council, county commissioner, school board, we need to start getting into the power structure at the grassroots and start moving into the federal government as well. The globalists have the long view. That's why they've been successful. We need to have the long view. Speak to that and Freedom Force International.
Oh, thanks for that, Ali. That is the mantra that I have been preaching for so many years. Most Americans have a very short attention span, and they have a very short view of the future. And even those who are greatly concerned about what's happening in America today want a solution that they think will happen within the next election. Can we do it by the next election? And if we can't do it in the next election, they're not interested. Well, I'm here to say it's not going to happen in the next election, or probably not even the one after that.
Because they give us a Bush, they give us an Obama, same policies, different rhetoric, and just the rope-a-dope continues.
As long as we're committed to this scam,